Yeah, and the house was like 5,000 square feet. It was freaking huge.
Yeah.
And we went and we made an offer on this house that I thought was like too high. And the guy like chewed our ass on the phone.
Yeah, he was pissed. It's funny. It's funny you bring this up because I literally was just talking to my neighbor about that property because his dad apparently lives kind of on that same road. What was the road, like Comanche or something like that?
Whatever. Yeah, Comanche actually.
Yeah, that's like a bunch of nice houses. And like we definitely made him a solid offer. And that roof was just, it was a cedar shake roof. And it was just leaking everywhere. And just like the whole thing was just a dump.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Collecting Keys podcast, the Mike and Dan show.
Out, man.
I know, getting tongue-tied at the start. That's not a good start. But welcome to the Collecting Keys podcast, guys. This is the Wednesday episode, the Mike and Dan show, where I, Mike DeHaan, and my co-host here, Dan Austin, talk about real estate investing, business, and everything in between. And we are here wrapping up Q2 very rapidly, which is freaking crazy.
Is Q2 wrapping up?
Isn't that the end of June, right? It's the 6th month. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
getting there pretty quick. But it's always funny, man, as you get into stuff, you set these like kind of goals about like in like timelines, and more as we've been getting involved in the business, I realize how true it is what people say, where like you overestimate what you can do in a year, but underestimate what you can do in 5. Is that what they say? I don't know, something along those lines.
Yeah, because like the freaking year goes by fast.
It does. And like all of a sudden you're like, oh, are we like suddenly behind on some things? Like maybe. But then you look at like where we were, 3 years ago. We didn't even really have a business yet.
Yeah, this wasn't even an idea. Like this wasn't even a concept that we'd think we could even make this much money or revenue or have a business at the scale we have it right now.
Yeah, so we're still trying to figure it out. It's funny. I got on my phone. It's like, oh, look back your photos 3 years ago, and we go back. It took me back over this weekend to that property that we walked. You remember that like big ass house that we walked out on the rim, where there was like that lady that was living there that was like an attorney or something, and it was a divorced lead.
Oh yeah,
and so we were talking to the wife, who was like, oh yeah, we need to sell this house. The roof is completely wrecked, and my husband is a giant asshole. And then we went and we met the tenant, and the tenant showed us everything that was wrong with the house.
Yeah, it was pretty trashed.
Yeah, and the house was like 5,000 square feet. It was freaking huge.
Yeah. And
we went and we made an offer on this house that I thought was like too high. And the guy like chewed our ass on the phone.
Yeah, he was pissed. It's funny. It's funny you bring this up because I literally was just talking to my neighbor about that property because his dad apparently lives kind of on that same road. What was the road, like Comanche or something like that?
Whatever. Yeah, Comanche actually.
Yeah, that's like a bunch of nice houses, and like we definitely made him a solid offer. And that roof was just, it was a cedar shake roof, and it was just leaking everywhere, and just like the whole thing was just a dump. Yeah,
there was just water damage all throughout. The entire thing was out of date. Like weird touch-up paint jobs. Yeah. Like the flooring was damaged. Remember the whole back deck? It was a huge back deck.
Yeah,
just that
trashed.
Deck to replace it would have been like $40,000.
Yeah, it was trash.
And yeah, we made an offer, and the guy was pissed. And then he listed it on the market for like way too much money, and he sold that bitch in like 3 days to some dentist.
I know. That's the best part about it.
So, well, it's like, well, shows us what's up then, I guess.
Exactly. We were wrong.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. But so the crazy thing is, though, I was looking at the notes on that because I was curious, and so we offered like $485 for that house.
Is that what he offered?
Yeah, he ended up selling it for like $630. That house now, we probably sell that thing for $900,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easy.
You didn't know what we didn't know what we didn't know back then, and that would have been a big project for us.
Oh yeah.
Right, because especially at that point in time, we were pretty in like buy and hold mode or flip mode, and like so you start thinking you tend towards that. But even wholesale, you're like, gosh, which one of our buyers is going to buy this? Because most of our buyers at the time were buying entry level homes to flip. Mm-hmm. So you now know what we know now. Heck yeah, I'd be all over that thing.
Yeah,
regardless of the price point.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like the last house we bought, that was kind of that price when we got bit pretty bad.
Yeah, but this one was way nicer.
It was way nicer.
Cul-de-sac. It was in a neighborhood of $800 to $1 million homes now.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't have like a weird drug ring in it beforehand.
Yes, exactly. No human trafficking going on in it. So yeah, you live and you learn. 3 years ago though, I love those like Google photo like look backs. Like, oh shit, that's what I was doing today, like last year.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's funny, man. And then stuff goes quick. And so there was that one, and then if you went forward to the next year, so it would have been 2021. The memory that it had was of us in Hawaii.
Oh.
And I remember you and me hanging out on the beach, and there was that one deal that we were trying to close forever because we were in that weird transitionary period where we had let our act manager go, and we had I don't think we'd hired our next one yet. We just had Ricardo, so we had our man in Latin America that was just like wheeling and dialing and like teeing up people, and then he would try to find people and want to have a conversation, and we got that really hot lead that also happened to live in Hawaii.
Oh yeah,
remember? And I remember like over the course of that week, we followed up with her a bunch of times, and she ended up like saying like, "Oh, I don't want to sell," and we'd been drinking Bloody Marys all morning. I remember, and you came up and you're like, "That's bullshit. You call her back right now." And so we were all hyped up on Bloody Marys, and we called her back, and we were like, I think we need to like reconsider this. And then we ended up getting the deal, I think, closed that day.
That's when we knew we made it, man.
Yeah, right.
That's when we knew we made it. Bloody Marys in Hawaii doing deals, because our first trip to Maui. What would that have been, like 2 years ago or a year before that? When was that? The first trip when we were like, how cool would it be to be here making money?
Dude, that was back before I quit my W-2. So that was 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, and we were.
Fast forward 4 years. But yeah, that whole trip to Hawaii that first time where I read the 4-hour work week, and we had that conversation where like, how sick would it be to be able to like be down on your laptop and make like $1,000?
Just chilling, making cash.
Just chilling, make $1,000. I'm like, man, only $1,000. I don't even know if I want to get off the
right
for that,
exactly. Another Mai Tai, please.
Yeah, right. But that whole trip, like that's usually my origin story, because I tell them like other podcasts where they're like, how did you know that it wasn't right? And I was like, well, I read this book, and I was like, it doesn't have to be this way.
Right. Yeah, that book started a lot of people down that path.
It did. Yeah.
I was just listening to a podcast that somebody read that book. When did that book come out? It's been a long time.
Old. I think it's probably 15 years.
It might have been Alex Hormozy was talking about reading it like 08 or something like that, or somebody had like a great origin story about that. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was the one that
carries a lot of influence.
It does, yeah. But yeah, that was 2 years ago, and then last year I didn't have any memories of this date, so I must not be doing anything cool.
You've been doing shit. I know where I was at last year. I had a baby, and so I was just sucking.
Oh wait, actually that's not true. I did have a memory. Last year I was in Spain, but it was like on like Thursday it came out. I was in Spain at my uncle's wedding, partying it up at 4 a.m.
I was up at 4 a.m. too.
For different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Man,
that's funny. But
good times. What other memories do we have?
I don't know.
Property memories.
Yeah, it's just crazy how fast stuff goes, right? Because like you think 3 years ago with that Comanche property, we'd only done maybe 2 deals at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wow. Yeah. No teams, no systems, no anything like that. Just out there grinding.
Yeah, we owned probably our duplex, and we owned Koza, the single family that we rented to the state of Washington for a while.
Which is a whole situation right now.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Or that is a fun one. So I drove up to that property this weekend. I was actually driving by, and I was like, oh, we own some properties in this neighborhood. I need to cruise by there. Let's take a look. And did not look healthy. It didn't look great. So backstory on this. So we got the single family home. This was the first official property we closed on, or the first official property we rented together. I can't remember. It was like right in there.
That was the duplex.
Okay.
Six was first, and then Koza was shortly after.
And we bought this one off the MLS for like $200,000. Didn't really do anything to it.
Well, so the reason that we bought this property was because I had a pre-established relationship with the state of Washington, where I had some properties that I was renting to them, basically to disabled adults, and they were paying like a premium price for the properties they're renting from me. And then they had been hounding me, being like, hey, we need more properties. And so we worked with them. I was like, hey, what if we buy a property specifically for you to use, and then you guys can basically just rent it from us? And we said, cool. So we like went and walked a bunch of properties with their staff. We settled on this one. We know we borrowed a second loan from somebody else to basically cover the down payment because we got a traditional loan. And then we bought it, and we basically just put them in as like a cash flow play because they were paying like premium rent for this thing. And it was like an older property. It's like a little rancher. You know, we didn't have to do any work to it. It worked out great.
1950s. It's not like it needed some cleanup, but it wasn't like anything was broken. It's not like a typical off-market deal, right? We bought off the MLS. Everything passed pretty much everything passed the inspection except for like the hot water tank or something like that. A good deal. Basically, we essentially became no money out of pocket because you're right. We got the second position for the down, which was great, and then even with everything, it's still our cash flow. We were still cash flow positive because interest rates were low back then. Anyhow, the state's like, yeah, we're gonna rent this thing forever, and then I think it's like a year into the lease, they're just like, yeah, so this house isn't big enough for us, and they moved out. But before they moved out, they didn't say anything. I just happened to go over there. I was like, you know what? I'm in the neighborhood, which is the only time I go by the house. I'm going to check on the house. And so, because they had told me they had vacated, and every single window was shattered. And there's some big windows in this house, like 8-foot wide windows, like big windows, holes in almost every single wall. So one of these disabled adults apparently had, I don't know, like a fit or like a episode or something like that. And I mean, what he said when he finally fessed up to it, the guy, our contact at the state, who was like trying to not tell us that happened, finally fessed up to it. He's like, yeah, so the handlers, the workers, the caretakers, the caretakers they just had to leave and lock all the doors.
Oh my
because
God.
It was so violent. That and the guy is a big dude. I know who he is. He's actually generally a nice kid, right? But
if I'm not mistaken, I think he gave you a big hug the first time.
Every time you go, I'd go by there. Like there's a while I had to go there. Like he would just like open the door, and he was probably like 6'3", 6'4", like 350 pound, like big kid. I'm not that big, and just freaking bear hug. And he always wore like a bottle of cologne. Like it was bad. Like that was his jam, in like a costume, like a Halloween costume. And so it was kind of scary and unnerving the first time. He just like opened the door and grabbed me and pulled me in.
Getting a hug by big like cologned Elmo.
Elmo, exactly. He was wearing like a Pooh Bear or something like that one of the times. But which now I'm like, dude, that guy has some like ability to really hurt people, right? And so I'm glad it never happened to me. He seemed to like me. But anyhow, they trashed the house. We worked all that out. It doesn't matter. That whole thing got cleaned up, but they were gracious enough to say, hey, we have this private organization, which is a good tip for those of you like in your market. There's private organizations that do the same thing. They will rent to disabled adults. They'll rent to like not just mental disabled, but physically disabled, and all sorts of other people, right? People, like, I'm guessing that are like
other people, whatever that means.
Like people that aren't allowed to be near schools and stuff like that. I'm guessing
offenders.
Because there has to be like housing for these people, and they also need to be under management. And there's a whole thing, but they tend to pay premium rents, and they tend to just like, you put people in there and they don't ever call you. That's kind of how it's worked with us for like a year and a half. In fact, I sent them a new lease and raised their rents, and all of a sudden they just started paying. I never heard anything back from them. And they were just plugging along. We're making cash flow in this place. Anyhow, so I drove by there yesterday, and I'm like, this place looks vacant. The yard is completely overgrown. Like, it was just like, looked bad. And you and I had like put a sprinkler system in and tried to make it maintenance free. And so there's one of those like bright red like Dodge Chargers, or like a Dodge, whatever, like the muscle car is, like the new muscle cars.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so I go knock on the door. I'm like, is there somebody even living here? So I just knock on the door, and this dude, I don't know where he's from. English wasn't his first language. Maybe Serbia. That's kind of like, it was like almost like a Russian accent, but definitely not Russian.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got an email from somebody that said your air conditioner doesn't work. I just wanted to see if that ever got resolved. And he's like, oh no, this does not work. And I was like, okay. And so I walked in, and I was like super creeped out, because I was like, oh man, like I don't even know this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I thought right when I walked in the front door, it's like a narrow hallway. So I walked in, and he was behind me. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. He's in my house. I don't know if he's supposed to be here. I have no idea. But he was just like, yeah, the air conditioning does not work. And then I went to the back room. I was like, hey, can you show me the breaker panel? And then immediately I go in there, and I realized I'm in a closet, and he's standing outside the door, and he could totally close the door. And now I'm freaking Rape City, like game over. And then I was thinking, like, I feel somewhat capable to physically protect myself, but I was like, man, I could not imagine, like, this is not something like maybe a woman, and I shouldn't just say a woman, but like a woman be more conscious about, or
no, they definitely should be, for sure.
Yeah, should be, right? But so as a landlord and as a female, it's a totally different ball game, right? I was even getting my spidey senses kicked up once I realized, like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you don't know who this guy is. I didn't even ask him who he was. I just left. So I'm like, I got to figure that out. But they keep paying rent. So that's kind of an odd situation, right?
I mean, it's so weird because it's like, should you care? I mean, because you also said the place, so the outside looks like shit. But like, if you're honest, it's hard to keep a rental property looking good on the outside.
Yeah, without the help of the tenants.
Without the help of the tenants. And I mean, even then, you can enforce it. You have to cut the grass. You have to do all sorts of things. They don't live there. They're never going to commit as much care as you want them to. It's always going to be the worst house compared to the homeowners next door, right?
Yeah.
But like on the inside, it looked okay. It's not
actually, it looked super
CapEx
clean.
Issues.
Yeah, no, it looked better than last time I went in there when it was all trash. But like the company had actually installed all new LVP floors throughout.
They improved it, yeah.
They
fine.
did a pretty good job. So I'm like, well, they're paying rent, and like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if I need to know who this guy is, because who knows? Like, as long as they're paying rent and the house on the inside is taken care of, the roofs aren't leaking. Like, they're obviously somehow a maintenance thing got to me randomly. Haven't resolved it yet, but like, you know, somehow there's communication.
Do we have a commercial loan on that or a 30-year loan?
Oh, I can't remember. Did we? No, I think we refinanced again with New America, so I think it's a commercial loan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so like until the adjustment comes up, who cares? Just leave it alone.
Yeah, I know, right? Just keep collecting. It's one of our best performing properties, actually. Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, dude, we're getting like $800 a door of like actual pure cash flow.
Of like a single family with no CapEx and a third party quasi manager.
Yeah.
That if there's any issues, they'll just take care of it.
Yeah, because they do have a maintenance guy, which is why I was surprised. I like literally got this random email, and I was driving by. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that email I got a week ago. I should go check that out. And so like the guy said that so and so had come through and like actually like checked all that stuff, and so I was like, oh okay.
Yeah, might just be something small, but
wild situation. I mean, it's kind of crazy how that can happen. As far as like you just show up, you don't know who that sometimes actually does happen to my student rentals, where I'll be like, I don't actually know if I'm supposed to be renting to you, because I have like at any given time I have like 12 to 16 student tenants. Yeah, and I can't remember them all.
Exactly, and you look at the lease, you're like, well, are you Hayden or are you Braden or are you Jaden? Or maybe you're Caden.
Exactly. I've always laughed because I always have a Hannah, I always have an Emma. Like it's just so funny, the generation too, the names. But
they're all the same. Oh, you're Declan. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Gen Zers out there with funny names.
I know.
But yeah, I'll be like, I think you signed a lease with me 2 years ago, but actually I don't know who you are. Yeah. Or there's somebody like, hey Dan, I'm like, hi.
It's always funny. And what you are saying though, I think it is just important to make sure that whether you're self-managing or you have a property manager, that somebody does go and get eyes on that property on a regular basis. Because I mean, we buy a lot of properties from people that have property managers, and like like the conversation always starts this way. They're like, oh well, that property works great. We have a property manager. You know, the tenant's late sometimes on rent, but it works out really well. And then we're like, oh well, that's weird because you received a letter from us because of code violations with the city. So obviously things are like kind of shitty. And then you know the conversation goes, and then we go and we walk it with the owner, and the owner's like, oh my god, this place is so unbelievably trashed. Yep. And it's like, well, when was the last time your property manager went through the property? And they're like, probably 10 years ago.
Yep, exactly.
Like, well, there you
go. Yeah, you should definitely have, and we do, like, even on our property manager that we're using now, I told them, I was like, hey, we need to, like, do an extra, like, every 6 months. And so, like, get pictures, right? Hey, I want pictures when you go through in 6 months. And, yeah, they agreed just because we have a tenant there that I know would not take care of the property if it wasn't for random, well, pseudo-random inspections.
Well, there's even just, like, little stuff, right? So, like, I have a triplex, and we have this new property manager that we've been working with, who's been awesome. And the last one we had sucked, right? Like horribly. It was like 0 for 4 with the last one. Yep. And they walked through my triplex kind of recently, and one of the maintenance guys, he noticed that the water was like constantly flowing in one of the bathrooms. And so they asked the tenant about it. And he's like, oh, has that been an issue? And he's like, yeah, it's been an issue for as long as I've been here. The guy's been there for like a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, why was it never fixed?
Yeah,
I'm over here paying the water bill.
We had that same problem at our triplexes when we switched property managers. Our property manager, their initial inspector, like, yeah, so 2 units, and he showed me like a video. I'm like, no, that thing's like running. That's not like dripping. It was like running into the shower. I'm like, I bet our water bill's super high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just dumb stuff. Like the same one at the triplex with the same shitty property manager we had before. We had like a flood because they were flushing tampons down the toilet, which is just the whole thing. But anyway, they're educated. It's not going to happen again. But we had to rip all the carpet out in one of the rooms. And then the new one walks in. The carpet never got replaced.
Oh, man.
So they were like, the child was like sleeping on a concrete floor.
Oh, man.
I was like, I'm not a dirtbag. Like, I'm more than happy to put carpet in there. Like, what the hell?
A couple $100. It's not a big deal. And carpet guys are a dime a dozen. So why they didn't do it? Just, who knows? It just fell from out, probably.
Because they suck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyhow.
Anyway, that's the rental woes.
Every once in a while, we got to bring those up.
Yeah, I mean, it happens regardless of size or experience, right? And also too, I'll say that I think where a lot of people start to have trouble with the rental properties comes from complacence, right? And that's why like people that have been around this for a while, they always emphasize like, hey, listen, your rental properties are not passive; it is a business.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have systems, you will have issues. Absolutely. Just like if you have like your own personal finances, if you don't ever review it, you will ultimately have problems with it.
And you can't rely on other people to do all your shit. Just like people say like, oh, I have a property manager. It's like you still have to manage your property managers. Just like if you had a financial advisor, you should probably still check once in a while whatever they're doing, because they're probably not always doing what's in the best interest for you. They're doing whatever they can to ensure that they can make the most money with the least amount of effort. Same thing with property manager. Not that they're bad people. It's just like they're running a business, and it's not always in the best interest of you. And maybe the owner sells the property management business, you don't know, and they sell it to somebody that sucks.
Yeah. They sell it to someone who sucks, or like maybe they have a maintenance person who's freaking terrible, right? Yeah. And you're the one that always just gets the bad maintenance person who just never goes and reports anything at your properties. Exactly. Right. And it's just important to do like a check and balance of like just manually touching and letting them know that you are seeking information, because if you do that, they will seek out that information for you if they're good. If they don't, if they don't respond to you and they're like, oh, I never heard my property manager, will fire them right away and go find somebody else that will.
Totally.
But it's also one of those things that like if you don't say anything and you're never a proactive, they're not going to engage with you either. That's kind of just how life works, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So, but yeah, no, it's always something. And then we have this whole thing with the 8 unit that we're selling right now.
Oh yeah, I forgot
about
that.
It's just such a weird situation. So like we accepted this offer on this property, and it's always been going good. And now they've come through and they like really want us to like list the property, like one of the units is empty for them at like a higher
like 30% over market rate.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I mean, I understand you want to test that. I believe you should just buy the property like everybody else, and then do it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's like our risk. Right, to do it. So we list the property. We miss basically a month of rent because we don't list, because we know what the market rate is. I think this person thinks they're getting a value add project, and there is some value to add, like no doubt. We priced it well, I think, for this market. But like 30% of rent increase, it's like, come on, like then I have to miss out on my rent for this unit so you can maybe back out of it. So that's kind of like a weird ask, and we never do that. If anything, we ask, hey, just don't fill it. Like we'll fill it when we take over. That's kind of like our general request, because I want to go and do things to the unit that I think I need to do for value add. And I also don't just buy units thinking, oh, I can get 30% more rent. I do like freaking research, and I would know that what I could get out of that. And so when we could come in there, we could turn and burn and get that thing listed and locked up with a tenant that we want.
Yeah. Well, also too, like from a buyer's standpoint, it's so foolish because like she's trusting the person that's going to have no interest in the property.
Exactly.
To like make this decision. Like we could go and find like a crackhead that's like yeah, I'll pay that for the property, because like if you ever list a property, you know how this is. You'll get like all the sob stories that are like, hey, listen, I know that the property is only a 2-bedroom, but it's me and it's my spouse and it's their in-laws and it's my in-laws and we have 18 dogs and we're really good friends, so we're all just gonna squeeze in there. And like we'll pay that $1,000, we'll pay like way more. And we could just be like, sure, here you go, here's the signed lease, new buyer.
I wonder if there's been some like apartment people, because you'll see some like leasing strategies with apartments, like like we'll give you a free month's rent, like lease it, but lease it like super high. Like, oh, it's like I've seen this before. I remember this back in the day, like in 2011 or something like that, where you see like, oh, that's kind of like a little bit high for like the market, but they're giving you a month free. So you lease it all up so that the NOI looks super high, and then it, increases the value of it. Maybe that's what some strategies are before you sell it.
They were doing that. That's what Matt Onofrio and those guys were doing.
That's why he went to jail.
That's why he's going to jail. Well, that's why
innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah, he's getting indicted. If you guys don't know who Matt Onofrio is, just give it a quick Google. And he's a ex-GoBundance guy that was doing the circuits on like Bigger Pockets and Ryan Pineda and like every major influencer out there about how he went from 0 to 150 million net worth in like 4 years. And lo and behold, it was all just fraud.
Particularly sounds fishy. It is fishy.
Yeah, particularly around doing things like that, like falsifying leases or falsifying bank statements and things like that to get over leverage.
Wild ass shit.
But point being though, with this whole conversation is, if you're buying a property, don't ask the seller to do things that are going to impact the performance of the property after you close. They no longer have your best interest at heart, right? Like our only incentive is to get the process moving forward. And I understand she wants to do everything, that's fine. But honestly, that's super foolish of her. I mean, we're not dirtbags. We're not going to do something like that. But she doesn't know that. She doesn't know who we are.
And most people you buy from are dirtbags. So
totally,
they have no interest.
Yeah, buyers are liars and sellers are worse. They say that for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah. So we resolved it by saying she needs to release all of her contingencies, and then we'll work with her on listing it. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but
so how we actually left. I actually just read the email too. She's the one that's going to list it.
Oh,
right. So she's going to be doing the process. Okay, and then if she wants to try and like get someone leased up, that's fine. It's just not going to start until the day the property closes.
Boom.
As far as I'm concerned, that she can move in. They can move in the day after closing, and we have our check. I do not
absolutely, yeah. And we're doing some maintenance. We're turning the unit, so she can't even get pictures right now. That stuff won't even be ready for another 10 days at least. And so do all that work. And then we've got a couple weeks to glide into closing. So yeah, we could slow roll this, make sure everything works out in our benefit.
Yeah, but it's just funny. But other than that, though, I mean, stuff is moving along. We got 3 new partnership markets starting here next week. Is it 3? Yeah, we got Idaho Falls, we got Columbia, South Carolina, and we got a suburb of Atlanta.
Hell yeah. Dude, we're filling up, man. If you want to be one of our partners or pro partners, you got to pick your zip codes, because we are filling up the entire country, and we do give our partners exclusivity.
I know. It's actually been interesting. We've actually reached a point now, as we're pushing 26, 27 different partners in our group, that we are having people inquire about stuff that's already booked. Mm-hmm. And I kind of hate it, because I'm like, you're obviously highly motivated to work with us, and I would love to work with you, but I just can't. Yeah. So we got to start like taking like reservations or something. Like if you're like soft interested, you gotta, like,
that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Yeah, have like an interest list in your zip codes that you're interested in, or something like that, or the city at least that you're interested in. And if that opens up, then you can have it, because we've got a lot of demand on some of those cities, some of those markets. Yeah,
it's interesting. And I guess what our partnership program is, we don't really talk about it a huge amount, because we are selective about who we work with. But very basically, we establish our business in your market, and we run the entire operation on the back end, up through providing even the acquisitions team. And then you, as the partner, are pretty much responsible for the exit strategy and helping underwrite the property, right? And helping get the property closed. So we do like all the dirty work on the back end. You review the hot stuff. You close the deals, or help us close the deals. And then basically how it works is you basically pay for the operation to run. You cover the costs. We bring all the labor, all the expertise, and then you get the bulk of the upside on the deals as a result. Yep. And so it's one of the reasons that it has allowed us to expand into all these different markets.
Yeah, it's one of the unique things where like we priced it such that we know 100% that you cannot run the operation for that same cost. So like it's cheaper just to pay us to run it with all the software and all the employees. But then what you said was you get all the upside on the deals, where a lot of people trying to do things, even like a Home Investors franchise, where they want like a huge like $80,000 fee up front, then they still want a percentage of all your profits after that. This is like, no, you do whatever you want with it. I don't care. Like, take all the upside on the property. You find the buyer, you take it down yourself, you flip it, you burr it, whatever. We don't have any interest after that.
Exactly. And then we can focus on what we're good at, which is growing the sales and marketing team. And then you can focus on what you're good at, which is knowing your individual market. Because like, I have no desire to learn the ins and outs of Columbia, South Carolina. Sure, it's a beautiful place. Yeah. I don't care. I just want to do transactions. Right?
It's great this time of year, but yeah, I don't necessarily need to own stuff in all 50 states.
No, but there's still opportunity there that our team can capitalize on, but we want you to help us capitalize on it. And basically the trade-off is, you know, you cover the costs, but you get all the upside on the deals, and it works out great. So, so, you know, we got a handful starting up. We got a ton of people in the pipeline. I think we're pretty much in every region in the United States at this point. I mean, we got people everywhere from California to Texas to Florida, all throughout the Southeast. We got the Northeast, we got the Midwest, we got the Northwest. Like,
we do, yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's any like larger regions that we're missing. I don't think so.
No, yeah, and then we're of course in like all of the big like states, even California.
Yeah.
So that's kind of huge.
I got to figure out what freaking Jamil decides is like, because he always says that he's the biggest wholesaler in the country. I got to find out what his number is. And then the fact that we actually close the deals, we just need to do more than that, and then we can tell that we're the
Well, you know, he's writing the Bigger Pockets book on wholesaling.
Oh, God, such a frick.
I thought what we need to do is write our book on wholesaling and release it first.
We should.
But actually have super valuable stuff and not bullshit talking about how I know how to wholesale, but I only did like a dozen wholesale deals like back in like 2012. It's a totally different industry.
Back in like 2012, back when no one was doing it at all.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things that changes every year. I don't know. Like, I see this is a frustrating thing for like you and I to see some other people, because like I respect everybody's game, and I know we bring up Jamil a lot, but like there's other people out there too that you're like, come on, how complex they try to make this and sell it to you, and then they get like sell coaching clients and sell like education packages. I'm like, okay, come on, like that's not, YouTube does not need to be part of your market strategy. Like, no. But they'll like say it because it sounds fancy and nobody else is saying it, and then people are like, well, if they've got to know because they've complicated this so much, that means they've figured it out. It's like, no. It's got to be simple. Let's take it back a notch, simplify it, and we coach people on the fundamental basics, and so it does get frustrating, at least for me, to see some of this dumb shit where you're like, I clearly know that's a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is too, is if you talk to like the people that are actually doing like a lot of deals and have like successful businesses, you know, I'm trying to think of like an example of people who don't, like Eric Brewer. He's a guy that, you know, he does this whole novation thing that's pretty niche, but like the way he operates his business, I have no doubt that guy does deals. Like, he's doing big money.
You know, I'm doubtful.
Yeah, well, I know you are, because you just didn't like that video he posted the other day about how he invented novation.
He invented novation. I'm like, you can't say that. It's like saying you invented Burr. Like,
yeah, right.
You can't. Well, you could take claim for the acronym, but you can't say that you invented the strategy because it's just a general strategy. It's like I invented how to sell houses.
Yeah. Well, either way, you can't doubt that he definitely does deals. I mean, even when we talk to him, right? Or the same with like, you know, Ryan Dawsey, right? Like
Ryan Dawsey.
like their business does deals for sure. You know, James Daynard, right? That dude like is doing deals over there. Right. But the thing is, you go talk to all those guys, they are all just doing, you know, bounce pass and jump shot basketball. It is the most basic fundamentals. They're not running YouTube ads. They're not doing some like crazy, I don't know, like drip funnel campaign to like a, you know, I'm writing an ebook for motivated sellers about how to get out of divorces.
Well, and the other thing is like you hear like people, they're like, man, radio is the only way to go, or texting is the only way to go, or this is the only way to go. It's like, it's not the only way to go. Yes, you can layer those into your system, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, that's a bad idea, because none of those lead sources that these people that become unique, like this is their unique niche. Like, you know, like the wholesaling guys, not to talk crap about them because I think they all do okay stuff, but like how they have like, this is my niche, this is the only way you can wholesale really high quality stuff. It's like, no, that's not at all the case. Like, there's a ton of ways to do it, but like you got to be consistent and show up and just be simple. You know, we're simple guys. We got direct mail. We know that works.
Yeah. Well, and also too, the good thing about staying simple is it's easy to scale. Yeah. Right. You basically just add more numbers into the equation, right? You add in more data, you added more budget, and it's not complicated. But like we got people that inquire about like our instant investor program and other stuff, or you know, they'll even just like hit me up and be like, so what is your secret? Like, how are you guys different? How have you been able to be so successful when it's so competitive? It's like, we just do it more consistently over a longer period of time. And we have a follow-up process.
Yep.
Like that, those are the things that most people lack. They don't have consistency in their business, and they don't have a follow-up process. And those are literally the only things that you need to be successful in this. Like, honestly,
yeah.
You know, and then a good sales guy like helps too. But even then, if you just have consistency and a follow-up process, you can be a shitty sales guy, and you will eventually get, you know, low-hanging fruit.
Agreed. Yeah. The longer you're in it, the more consistent you are. I think that can turn a bad salesman into somebody that's at least productive.
Yeah.
It's not going to make them a good salesperson. They're going to make them productive.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, at least, you know, they'll get stuff done. So.
Yeah. I want to hear your opinions because we thought about going to the Limitless conference. I want to hear your opinions on it. There's a lot. That's in the real estate news. If you follow any of the influencers out there, I want to know kind of your thoughts on the Limitless. I do think it's probably actually a good conference, but I'd just like to hear what your thoughts are, little man.
Well, so I mean, we already talked about this. The blazers and the khaki pants is not our look.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's not our vibe for sure.
No,
KeysCon won't. You don't have to wear blazers to KeysCon. If
no,
you want to, you can. We won't shit on you. We will.
Well, I will. Yeah, right. but like so that's always the thing that I think is funny at these real estate things. I'm like, come on. Like the whole thing of like an investor, the joke is the investor's the guy that shows up to the closing tale with flip flops on. He's on his way to go hang on his boat afterwards, right? Yeah. But so I mean, when it comes to that conference, I mean they have like the who's out there. They have the Ken McElroys, you know, they had him. They had Kiyosaki out there speaking. You know, they had Brandon Turner. You got all the big names out because you know Tarl Yarber out of Seattle, who's runs it, is very well connected. I think it's actually him and Ken McElroy's thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they run it. Yeah,
they run it together. I mean, like I absolutely believe there's probably great networking there. The red flag that always comes with me is whenever Kiyosaki is involved in anything.
Lately, it's been kind of like, ugh.
Well, here's the thing. He has been claiming like the doom and gloom of the United States.
Yeah.
For like the last like 15 years, like forever. So ever since the recession.
He's also like in his early 80s now.
He's super old, right? And he's always jumping like, oh, I'm buying gold. Oh, I'm all into crypto. Oh, I'm against crypto. Now I'm doing like oil futures.
Yeah.
You know, I'm into heavy metals. I'm doing whatever. To the point where he gets really like woo-wooey. And it's just because he wrote like the book from the 90s, you know, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that got all the Gen X's into real estate. Right, and sort of like, you know, gave people the introduction to cash and those sort of things, that people give a lot of weight to what he says. But every time I see him talk to somebody, I'm like, okay, Grandpa, you know, it's like if you were gonna have Joe Biden give you a lecture on economics when everyone fully knows, you know, everyone like regardless of your political sphere, you can fully acknowledge that he has issues.
Dude,
right?
Okay, let me stop you for a second because this is funny. Like. So I saw a meme. It was like a video of Biden. And it was Pete Buttigieg, or whatever his name is, was introducing him. Yeah. And then Joe Biden comes out and he's like, something booty juice. And then the caption is booty juice. I was like, so all I was thinking the whole weekend was booty juice. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Anyhow, sorry.
But like literally, he's been on stage, and it's been like a thing on the prompter that says like, do not read this part out loud. Yeah. Right. And he'll like just say,
he'll read it. Yeah. Like you start losing credibility. You do that once, it's like, okay, whoops. But you start doing it. Yeah. And Kiyosaki's been crying wolf a long time.
He's that guy of the real estate world.
He is, but he has such a good name. It's like all of it. Like when he went on Bigger Pockets, he went on a podcast circuit, which some of these guys, the big name guys, like there's a reason why they're going on your favorite podcasts. Mm-hmm. And you know, Bigger Pockets, he had never been on Bigger Pockets in a decade or whatever, you know. And then all of a sudden he comes on there, and then he was on and then I was like, oh shit, Bigger Pockets got him. I'm gonna listen. And I kind of got some red flags, and then he kept going. And what he was doing was he's obviously promoting his brand because he also has his other mastermind. I can't remember what him and Ken McElroy, what they call it. They have their own mastermind together that's not associated with Limitless. And so you understand what they're trying to do, and they're trying to build a following and all that sort of stuff. I think he has some great valid points, but what I wanted to bring up was I was like, damn, this guy's getting a little wild with some of his vernacular and like how he's talking about the economy and those sorts of things. And I'm like, I don't think I agree with him, which is hard to say because I was a guy, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I thought it was a fabulous book. I still think it is. I let my kids read it. I think it really breaks down the concepts of like being an employee versus like actually being a true entrepreneur as opposed to creating your own job and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's tough when he's presenting saying the world's going to come to an end, when I truly believe the American economy and humans in general are super resilient, and we always seem to figure out a way to get past something.
Yeah, and to be fair, we don't even know if that's what he talked about there. We're just making extreme, because we weren't there. We're just making extreme assumptions based off of what he's talked about in every piece of media he's been on for the last 15 years. So it's probably a safe bet.
Yeah, our property manager was there, and he presented, like, I think at least he sent us some slides that they were presenting. I can't remember exactly what was on them. So there was definitely some doom and gloom, but like it wasn't like bad stuff that I was like, oh my God. But I think the bottom line here that Ken McElroy was presenting on was like, be patient 1 to 2 years. That's what he thinks looking forward. And I respect Ken's stuff, even though he's associated with Robert Kiyosaki quite. But he's an
OG, but he's still like a young dude. He's like in his 50s. He's got 30 years left in his career.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
he's on Coeur d'Alene a lot, so I want to make sure I bump into him one of these days.
Right. No, I think that the big moral of the story is that whenever you are consuming content from anybody, right, if they ever say something super outlandish or super like, I don't know, that like draws your attention. I mean, this is like what politicians do, right? This is how Trump built this whole platform. They say something that's completely outrageous, and then they say, you know, oh, and like, you know, you can learn more about it here. You can follow me here. This is my next thing that I'm doing, all that sort of stuff. I'm running for president. Here's, you know, why this outrageous thing is like, if you want to support that, you should come, you know, vote for me, whatever. Anytime anyone does that, you should immediately have your red flags go up, because they are looking for a reaction and they only have their own self-interest at heart with whatever they're saying. And it's probably not actually backed by anything, right? Because that was a whole thing, like back when he was on Bigger Pockets. I think it was Bigger Pockets. I know which episode you're talking about, where he was saying some like really outrageous stuff. Yeah. It's because they were like starting a fund to buy like oil futures or some shit.
Is that the one he was starting? So what you see too, and he's also a person who gets kickbacks from the gold companies. He's part of that stuff, which is fine. Like that, whatever. Like, you know, if that's your thing, but don't think because Robert Kiyosaki was a real estate investor and he's saying buy gold, you should buy gold. That's just my strong belief. If that's part of your strategy, go ahead and do it. I just don't think that it's a worthy investment personally when you have the opportunity to either be patient, you know, wait a year, or continue to go off market real estate and find things at a discount. So no matter what happens, you still got a good damn deal.
Yeah. You just got to fact check your experts at the end of it.
There you go.
Know? Just like if you listen to us and you're like, I think Mike and Dan are full of shit, hit me up on Instagram at Mike_invest, and I'll be happy to show you some HUD statements of deals that we've done, because we got a bunch of them. Yeah. But
I got a stack of checks. I'm looking at jets.
Yeah, I'll send you a photo of all my checks outside my jet that I'm gonna be doing my next Instagram reel in front of.
Oh my God,
no, it's a whole other ball game. Okay, welcome to Collecting Keys, the show where we just hate on everybody. Yeah, and there's nothing you can do.
Well, maybe next year we'll be at the Limitless conference though,
as a speaker. Yeah, and you know we can challenge.
Speaker,
we can challenge the old guys to like a game of wit. You know, because we can't wrestle. We can find
Tarl's there. Tarl's a young old guy. He knows what's up.
I'm gonna keep my words to myself.
So don't freaking create problems, man. Quit trying to pick fights with people.
I'm not trying to pick fights with anybody. I'm just saying that when you know enough people, it's a very small community, and people hear things about people.
We say that a lot, though. It is a small community, and like, don't do things that suck, and always be super honest, and don't take advantage of people or situations, because usually, if they're wise, that only happens once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and all it takes is one time to end your career or get you into a really, really bad, you know, personal and financial position, right? So, you know, the real estate investor space, people that are taking it seriously, is honestly probably a few thousand people in the United States, and that's all.
Yeah. So especially doing anything worth doing, and we're all like one person away from each other.
Like, honestly, it's crazy. But I mean, even Ken McElroy, and I say he lives in like, you know, Coeur d'Alene. We could probably talk to him at the end of the week if we wanted to. Like, hey, can you connect me with Ken? Sure.
Yep.
We can find that person very, very easily. So.
Truth.
Anyways, all right, guys, we'll finish our rambling here. Thanks for listening. We hope you guys enjoyed this show. You probably heard about this somewhere, whether someone told you, you saw it on social media, you saw a Facebook ad, saw me on Instagram, whatever. However you heard about it, you should share this the same way. That's a great way to help us grow the listenership, and we are trying to grow this thing every single week. So any way that you can do, anything you can do to help that out really, really helps. Besides that, you should follow me on Instagram at Mike_invests. One of the things that I really want to keep doing over the summer is keep engaging with people and helping people get started on their real estate journeys. So you should follow me there and shoot me a DM. Let me know what you're working on. If you're trying to build an off-market business, what your portfolio looks like, all that sort of stuff. Honestly, I've come to find as I connect with people, that's probably one of my favorite things about having a small platform is that. And then you can follow Dan too at Investorman Dan, but he doesn't like it quite as much as I do. So he's got kids and shit. I think.
So what I should say is, instead of Mike rambling on, what we should talk about is the instant investor program that actually nobody knows that we have when they DM me. That's a problem.
That actually,
so if you are DMing and like engage with us, like we do say we have an instant investor program. I think we get asked that fair enough times. We're like, oh, you do? It's like, maybe we should tell them that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because literally I had someone that messaged me last week wanting to know if we offered any mentorship, and I said, yeah, we have this mastermind, the instant investor program. He goes, oh, really? Got on a call, he heard about it, small intimate group, like, whether you're at like 40 something people, kind of selective of who we bring in, really good deep diving on people's businesses and a whole like plan around how to grow a business, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And he was like, cool, I'm in, signed up right there. Yeah. He didn't even know.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he even said, he's like, man, if I knew you had this back in October when I started following you, my business would be 7 months farther along right now. And I'm
Truth.
Like, my bad.
So instead of you just plugging Mike Invest, you got to plug Instant Investor too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Moral of the story.
I'm just not good at selling stuff. But anyways, guys, you should follow us there. Hit us up about those things, and you can also go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free and get your free 5-step guide, start generating off-market leads, and that'll also give you a little blueprint about how to get
started. Got some new shirts getting ready to drop, right?
We do. Got some new shirts.
Okay, I'm excited. All right.
Yeah, so watch out for those. But right on, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to y'all next week.
See ya.